Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hey, it's Jackie Cation. Welcome to the Dork Forest. You know the websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com, FamilyPetAncestry.com. You're probably already there. Let's do the credits. Mike Rickberg composed and sang that song with his wife, Sarah, that you just heard. He's going to sing his version of the Mexican hat dance at the end of the program. Patrick Brady is going to fix this audio, and Vilmos works on JackieCation.com, the website. There are many ways to support the show. The Amazon link is one. You can use an Amazon link from JackieCation.com or DorkForest.com to go to Amazon. You order like normal, and it supports the show. There is a straight-up donation button, PayPal or Venmo, to this email address that is mine, Jackie at JackieCation.com, where you can just donate to the show if you like the show a lot. I think PayPal has figured out a way to do a monthly. If you want to go monthly, please do. Other ways to support the show if you want to is you can buy merch. There's Dork Forest t-shirts, and all the shirts are union made here in America, so they run a little big. Union Bayside, so if you want to look up their size chart. And then the other merch is my stand-up merch. On JackieCation.com, you can watch me do stand-up, you can look at my schedule, and the stand-up merch, a couple of different t-shirts, couple of different enamel pins, and all of my CDs and my DVD. If you want to live stream my DVD, it's over there at comedyfilmnerds.com. They have a live streaming capability, or you can get a hard copy of the DVD on my website. Oh, there are premium episodes at Bandcamp. TheDorkForest.bandcamp.com has probably 10 episodes that were done live. They cost me a couple of bucks to make, so I charge you a couple of bucks. If you've run out of regular episodes, go over to TheDorkForest.bandcamp.com and get some more. Other than that, I say this, let's get into the show. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room with Erin Tracy, you guys. Stand-up comic Erin Tracy, who runs Sugar Rush over at, is it Second City? Mm-hmm. Okay, Second City here in Los Angeles, and I have done that show twice. Had a lovely time both times. Our mutual friend Dan Telfer, Dinosaur Dork, introduced us.
Yes.
So he is a delight. Erin Tracy, by the way, is Erin Tracy Comedy on Twitter. ErinTracy Comedy. And then on Instagram, it's Erin N. Tracy, two N's. ErinNTracy.
The N is for Nicole, which is my middle name.
Is it spelt Nicole or Nisolé?
Nisolé.
Nisolé. It's I have a friend named Nicole, and I always refer to her as Nisolé, so that Andy knows who the hell I'm talking about. Even though I think she's the only Nicole we know. Mm-hmm. Weird. It's a great story. I'm going to tell it again, okay. Erin. It's going to be a fascinating tale over and over and over again. So I kind of want to talk about baking.
Okay.
Because you like to bake.
I love to bake.
And you run a show called Sugar Rush, where you bring cookies.
I bake.
And brownies.
Yes.
What is the weirdest thing that you've ever baked for because you asked me what I liked.
Yeah, I usually, I like to see what the comics like and bring something that they'll eat.
It is Los Angeles, so everyone's having half a cookie.
Oh, man.
And
there are some comics, though, that really get excited and want to bring it home, and those people warm my heart, because you're right. I get the people that email me the day before. They're like, oh, I just quit sugar yesterday. It's like, you're lying. I know you're lying.
You're trying to quit sugar today.
Good. I respect that. And also not today. I think the weirdest thing, weird. Okay, so the first show you did, I baked a variation on the Milk Bar cookie, which is called the compost cookie.
What is that?
Which has just everything in it. So it's got pretzels and potato chips and oats, and you make another recipe that has graham cracker in it. And I used chocolate graham crackers. It has coffee in the original recipe,
right.
But I feel like that overpowers the flavor, so I go with cocoa instead of coffee.
You just named 6 things.
I know.
And the coffee's the thing. You're like, nah, we're drawing the line. They're drawing the line with the coffee. So was it, they were essentially crunchy bars because they had potato chips and...
No, they're like chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
But they have all that good
stuff in them,
like snack foods in them.
Oh, it's a snack food
It's
cookie.
Like a sweet and savory delight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because it has potato chips, and potato chips are potato chips, so they're salty, and potato.
Uh-huh.
And then weird.
I remember when you came, I was like, you should try one of these. You were like, nope, they look weird.
Well, that's my whole I mean, I'm just like, sweet treats are not my downfall, but I do like them. I just, before you showed up, there was the last of the peppermint bark from Christmas. I just ate probably 4 ounces of chocolate. I'm like, all right. But I'm sick of looking at it in the fridge, and there's so much chocolate because it's whatever.
It's the holiday time.
It's over. It's left over. Let's clean that up.
Right?
Let's process that through the Jackie machine. And but what? So where did you learn to bake? From the parents? Or?
No, and in fact, I got in trouble. Man, so I grew up in a single parent household, and my grandma watched me.
Okay.
And I remember when I was in the first grade, I got this from the school book fair, which is like magic, right? When you're a little kid. And so I got this like teddy bear cookbook.
Yeah.
And my grandma, who was like this Irish Catholic grandma who sat on the couch and watched soap operas, was like, yeah, you go bake that. Have fun.
Oh, really?
And I baked using a plastic pan and ruined our family oven.
Oh, God. Because you were little.
Because I was little.
And there was no oversight because she was busy watching television.
It was like, go have fun with the teddy bear book. I had all the ingredients. I'd figured out all of that, but I had no idea.
About heat conduction. Yeah, how could you? No, it turns out science, it's a learned skill, it turns out. Wow.
Yeah, so we didn't have an oven. So we didn't replace, we also had a dog that knew how to open cabinets and pantries. Oh. So the oven then became bread storage.
Okay.
To hide from the dog for years. In my house, we didn't have an oven.
No oven?
No oven.
Did you do microwave? Toaster oven?
So I did. We had a microwave. We microwaved everything for many years.
Have you ever tried to bake in a microwave?
Yes.
It's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
But they always implied that it was going to be a thing of the future.
Possible.
Yeah.
I made a recipe when I was around that age with no oven where I like just put marshmallows and peanut butter and chocolate chips. And, and like if you stir it up, it makes like a taffy.
Yeah.
And I called them peanut butter smileys.
Well, that sounds tasty. Did it work?
It worked. They were a little weird.
Sure.
But they were sweet and like a cookie.
Yeah, it was like it was a candy. Yeah. You made candy is what you made.
Yeah, I made candy. I was on the hunt for it. But then I remember like the serious baking really came in around college, I would say.
When ovens were introduced into your life.
Into my life. We
didn't have an oven for 2 years. Because the element broke in our oven. It was called the element.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they never replaced it. Oh. They were like, oh, we're going to replace it. And then they blew it off. And so we essentially microwaved and grilled everything. And I lived in Wisconsin. So my sister grilling in February, because she was in charge of the grill. She was very pleased with herself. Did you do any grilling?
No, I mean, I didn't, again,
I mean, did your family do any grilling because of the lack of oven?
No.
No, just all microwave.
A lot of microwave. We had a George Foreman grill.
Oh, there you go. So there was you had electricity.
We had thank goodness. I mean, it was Florida, so it was bad, but there was electricity, so it wasn't that bad, you know?
So when you went to college, did you meet other like-minded people who were like, do you know how to bake or?
No, I just, my grandma baked growing up, and then my mom was never a big cook or she didn't bake. She was very good at cutting things, so we ate a lot of big salads.
Oh, she liked a big salad.
She liked to cut things. She still to this day likes to cut things. She's a good sous chef. But no, I would say I just became obsessed. I went to college in New York City, and there's really good food there.
Yeah.
And I am obsessed with dessert, and so the fastest way to get some dessert is just to whip it up.
Wow. It's, I think the fastest way to get dessert is to buy it. Yeah, but it's interesting. So what did you first start making initially? Like, what did your grandmother make did it inspire anything that you made?
Cookies. I feel like cookies that's my
your
drug
strong
of choice.
Okay.
I would say is definitely cookies. Yeah, and like chocolate chip cookies growing up before the oven was back, I'd mathematically figured out how to make like 1/16 of a recipe of chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, so you could just make a tiny amount of cookies?
So I could just eat that, just the dough.
Right.
To eat raw.
A little raw dough action.
because that's when egg beaters were still a thing, the eggs in a carton.
Yeah.
You remember those?
Oh, yeah.
So you could have like 1/8 of an egg.
Yeah.
You could do the math.
You could do the math. You could just measure it out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So I would make small portions of chocolate chip cookie dough. So chocolate chip cookies are like my thing.
That's your standard.
Yeah.
I know the first time I made the Nestle Toll House cookie from the back of the packaging. Didn't know how to bake at all. Still not good at it because it is science.
Yeah.
And is I just put all the ingredients in order that they were listed. Like I didn't mix the dry and the wet and then combine. That's key. You're going to want a standard. You want a cookie that's well mixed.
Yeah.
That feels like not just a lumpy, grainy kind of situation.
Yeah. What did they come out as?
I don't know, but I ate them.
Okay.
You ever make it like food and you're just like, well, no one else is here. I bought this food. I'm going to eat it. And so I did. And indeed, I don't know how many. I think I was supposed to bring them. I ate like some of them and then I tossed them.
Yeah.
Because they weren't great.
No.
But I learned very well afterwards that you have to mix the dry and then mix the wet and then combine, right?
Yeah.
Is that a big thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all trial and error.
Yes.
Metal pans, mix the dry, mix the wet.
Right. Simple things that are not necessary, or easy things that are not necessarily intuitive.
You got to do it once. Well, and then you can get more sophisticated with the trial and error, right?
Right.
So, like, do you like a soft cookie or do you like a crunchy cookie?
How do you do the difference? Isn't it just the
Butter to
length
sugar
of...
ratio.
Oh, is that what it is?
Kinds of sugar you use. More brown sugar is softer cookie. More white sugar, crunchier.
Interesting. And more sugar to butter is crunchier, and more butter to sugar is chewier. Fascinating.
Yeah, they have all sorts of cool like infographics online where you can see.
Yeah. Somebody gave me a book called Ratio. And it was essentially, it was a bread making book, and it was all about flour to water to liquid to dry. And I hated it. I never finished it. It was an interesting, because there was a moment when I thought I wanted to make bread.
Yeah.
I don't. I
We
don't
all
want to
have
make
that
bread.
moment.
Bread isn't hard to make. It's just a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass to
Yeah,
make bread.
because you gotta knead it, you gotta care. I don't. But do you make other kinds of desserts? Have you made pies?
I like to make pie. I had a bread summer in New York City with no air conditioning.
Oh, really?
Where I was going to bake bread.
Yeah.
And I baked all kinds of bread. And then I was like, just what you said. I was like, there's no reward in this. I make a delicious loaf of pumpkin savory bread. I eat it. It's bad tomorrow.
Right, because it only lasts really just the one day.
Yep.
You got to have people to bake for to some extent.
Yes.
And that is unfortunate for people who like to bake,
Yeah.
who live alone or who aren't super social and aren't like, hey neighbors, guess what I made? A bunch of baked goods.
But that's a funny thing and that's why I love doing it for the show, because there's a built-in way for me to bake for people that isn't weird, because if you just bake for people, which I've done in the past, they're like, they think you're like taking the relationship to the next level.
I bet you they do, because it feels like a bigger deal than it does to the baker.
Yeah.
Because the baker is like, no, I don't think you understand. I need to bake.
Yeah.
You are a person who consumes food. Thus, I'm going to hand you some baked goods.
Enjoy them.
Right.
Love them.
And that's how we should all receive them.
Right.
Other people who don't bake. We
But-
should just receive it as just a gift.
I've stopped doing it because
Right,
people are
'cause
like
weirded.
whoa, what does this mean for us? You know?
I know. I would occasionally bring things to comedy shows back in the early. I think I was raised to bring things, and and then it got weird because people were like, "Why are you bringing things?" First of all, this is a business; they sell things, and stop bringing things. And yeah,
it's a thing. I mean, so as a person that has also worked in the arts as a choreographer, if I can't pay my dancers a lot, I would always bring food to rehearsal, right? Like that's an easy way. You take a break.
Least.
You know, there's something delicious we can all snack on and come together over. But
have you done savory baked goods? You said
I'm not, because it's about the sugar for me. It's basically about all forms of sugar.
so. Sugar and chocolate.
And chocolate.
Okay, that's it. How about brownies?
I do like a brownie.
How do you make a homemade brownie? I've only made brownies from a brownie mix, a box.
I mean, so the brownie recipe I used when you did Sugar Rush was a combination. So I just got very fancy cocoa powder.
Okay.
I like invested in the like nice cocoa powder.
What's bad cocoa powder? Just like Nestle or
like
something?
the Hershey's.
Okay. It's
like,
just
that's
normal.
standard.
Yeah.
You know, which I respect and have
Sure.
used. You know, there's like the next level up is Ghirardelli.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then
Okay.
like I ordered like the Belgian like
Oh, right.
delicious cocoa,
Yes,
right?
something
like
very
the super
fancy,
fancy.
yes.
It's shipped to me from Amazon. So it's a combination of you melt down unsweetened chocolate and add the sugar,
Okay.
right, to the unsweetened chocolate and cocoa powder, right, with the
Okay.
flour and the dry ingredients.
Okay.
Because for that particular recipe, I was going for a fudgy brownie
Okay.
as opposed to a cakey brownie.
A cakey. Now, and how do you, and what's the difference on that? Is that just amount of flour
So
per chocolate or?
So I think if you want a cake or a brownie, you'll probably use a bit more cocoa powder. I'm not a brownie expert,
Right.
But I imagine that you would go skew to the like dry cocoa, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have as much maybe liquid to like
Okay.
make it rich and fudgy.
Right. Do you bake every week?
No, not every week. I
Okay.
don't bake every week. I would say I probably bake. Okay, so I am a procrastinator.
What? A procrastinator. Finally. The word we needed. Yes.
This is a real term. I didn't make it up. It's in
Okay.
there's a New York Times article on people that are procrastinators.
Okay.
So if I have something large pending in my life and I want to sink that submarine, I will bake a lot in 1 week.
Oh, there you go. Oh, it's work avoidance.
Right.
There you go.
Because you're very productive and creative.
You feel like you're doing something.
So much.
You're not doing the thing.
Nope.
But you're doing this other thing.
And it's delicious.
Sure. Right at the end of it, everybody's had a delicious thing.
Everybody's happy. You get to eat the dough along the way
Yep.
to make sure it's tasting right.
Yep. Uh-huh.
There's precision. You have to focus. You can't think
Sure.
about that other stuff.
Nope.
So I would say it's more compulsive baking.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So did you make pies?
I have made pies.
Do you make the crust?
I've made the crust sometime. It depends on how much I love you, whether or not I make the crust.
Because crusts are the tricky part, right?
It is. That's kind of like bread.
Okay.
There's got to be love in that action, or else it's not worth it.
Might as well buy it.
Yeah.
And they have good ones.
They have good ones. They
Yeah.
have like gluten-friendly ones even.
Right. And you can get, like there's the kind that come in the tin, and then there's the kind that you unfold.
Yeah, I don't understand the unfold ones or why those would be superior.
Right. I don't, they seem a little bit more malleable.
Maybe. If
'Cause
you wanted
my-
to like lattice the top, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that seems to be the whole, because Andy just made 2 pies for his own birthday.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law just made a couple pies for Christmas. And she likes to use the unfolding kind with the rolling.
Really?
Yeah. And
Because
then
she does pretty like patterns on the top of it?
no, it was she made a pumpkin pie and a pecan pie.
Okay.
So there's no lattice
There's
work.
no top. Yeah.
There's no top. There's just there's scalloping around the thing.
Yeah.
And then Andy made these weird, he wanted his birthday to be weird food thing, but he loves a sweet treat. So, and you can have a piece of pie before we go, because there are several pies in our refrigerator in the garage. They're both sort of pudding based. With one, he was like, it's sour cream and raisin.
Huh.
Yeah, that face is correct. I was like, what are you doing? And then it has a meringue on the top.
Oh, nice.
Like a homemade meringue.
I like a meringue.
Okay. I don't. I don't dislike a meringue.
So it's like cheesecakey kind of?
It's more like a vanilla. I ended up liking it because
Okay.
I made him. I didn't make him. He said, I'm going to make 2 raisin pies. And then his mom, genius, said, what about dried cranberries? I will eat a cranberry and pudding pie, I guess, is what it is. So there's one that's a cranberry sour cream pudding pie and one that's a raisin. And I was like, I'm unmoved by raisins, even though cranberry raisins aren't much different. They're just a little tartar.
Yeah, there's something fancy about a craisin, though.
Right. And the meringue is nice. He made a nice meringue on them.
Yeah.
And so it was, but he gets the pie shell and then he fills the pie shell and then he bakes them. Yeah. And so what kind of pies do you like?
I just made a really good, so I did bake for someone that was gluten-free and dairy-free recently.
Oh, wow.
And I made a modified version of just like your classic chocolate pie, like a southern chocolate pie.
Yeah.
And I used coconut milk instead of real milk.
Right.
And the recipe turned out delicious.
Yeah.
And like a little coconutty, which was a special treat.
People love.
Which people love.
Yeah. And just a hint of coconut is kind of nice with chocolate.
It's delicious.
That sounds delightful.
And I made a Derby pie recently.
What is that?
So it's for the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, there you go. The horse racing.
And it's like a walnut chocolate chip with bourbon pie.
Wow.
Boozy pie.
Wow.
It's delicious.
Walnut chocolate chip sounds delightful. Bourbon just mixed in with sort of the milk and the...
Yeah, but it
just has the
alcohol burns off.
It burns off. It just has
got
that
a little
sort
bit
of
of that.
Flavor and aroma to it, I bet.
Yeah, that like sweetness
Yeah.
that bourbon has.
Oh, wow. It's interesting. Yeah. And that turned out really well?
Yeah. That's a classic. That's one I go to a lot.
Is it?
Yeah, and if there are people that aren't so big on bourbon, then I'll just substitute vanilla. More vanilla extract. You can do that too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what about cake?
See, I love to eat cake. But cake is one of those things that people get really weird about if you bring them a cake. Like
you've somehow...
Like you bake someone a cake, you're like, I brought you this for your birthday.
And they're like,
the stakes are high then.
Yeah, you've just raised the bar again.
Yeah.
That's weird. It's I've only made cake from a box as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I clearly have not done enough baking. I mean, do you have nice bakeware?
I have nice bakeware. I have fancy ingredients.
You have fancy ingredients. Do you have the best sprinkles? What's happening?
I'm not a big sprinkles gal.
Right? There's cupcakes and muffins.
That's true.
Those people...
Muffins are like a sad cupcake. Like muffin is what I eat when I feel like I should be eating something healthy.
Right? And yet don't want to.
Right?
So you're like, I'm going muffin. And it's blueberry.
And it's, boof. In general, about the raisins and the craisins, I think if you add fruit to any baked good,
yep,
the people eating it really have to love you to enjoy it.
Now I would say I used to only like pumpkin pie.
Okay.
And then I was introduced to a decent cherry pie. And I love a cherry pie. So that's a fruit.
That is a fruit that's good.
A fruit pie. Because I love a strawberry rhubarb pie a great deal.
Yeah, I mean, fruit pies are a different category than say, a dried fruit.
Oh my God,
like
yes.
an oatmeal raisin cookie, which is the saddest of cookies to receive.
People get furious.
I know you're going to have angry comments. Oh, we love the oatmeal raisin. Put a chocolate chip in there instead. Come on, people, be humane.
Well, it's so funny because if you have a stack of chocolate chip cookies and a stack of oatmeal raisin cookies, people are like, no, I don't want an oatmeal raisin cookie. I want a chocolate chip cookie. And they'll be like, I guess I'll have an oatmeal if there's only those left. But I don't actually mind an oatmeal raisin cookie. You're like, what? What's happened? And but I'm more of a savory person in general.
Okay. So what savory baked goods are you into?
Savory. You know what I like? I like a garlic bread. I like a rosemary, like a baked rosemary bread. And what I like to do, which I did not get to do with the last chicken that I baked, is I like to get sort of a rosemary olive oil. Sometimes there'll be an herby bread. And I'll rip it up, like sort of like you do, or cut it up, and I'll put it underneath a chicken. And then bake the chicken on top of it and make something I like to call, and I've mentioned it before, chicken bread. Chicken bread is all it is fucking schmaltzy covered chicken fat bread.
Yeah.
And if it has herbs on it, it tastes even better. And it is not good for you. And it is like a delight. Yeah, it's like a stick of, you're eating a stick of butter and it's wonderful.
It sounds delicious.
It is delicious. Okay. It is a delicious treat. So, do you like to make a cookie or a bar more than, do you make bars? People make bars.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love the cookie because I feel like the cookie is like the sandwich of the baked good world. It's all you need. It's tidy.
Okay.
It's like it's self-contained, its own unit.
Nobody has to cut it.
Nobody's got to cut it.
It's already prepared. It's its own item.
You don't have to decide fork or no fork.
Right. Sometimes with a bar, you're like, oh, I should probably get a fork.
Right.
This is a lemon bar. And you're like, if it were a lemon cookie, I would just eat it.
I just pick it up.
Yeah.
So I think cookies, hands down, pun intended.
Pun intended.
I think cookies, for that reason, they're very accessible, right?
Right.
Go highbrow with this.
Right. And so your favorite cookies are your chocolate chip cookies, obviously.
Love chocolate chip cookies.
Let us speak of any other baked goods you would like to talk about, or shall we move to the next dorkdom?
I think that's it. I mean, again, I could talk about this for ages, and I could also talk about like dessert in general.
Okay, what other desserts?
Forever. Oh my gosh. So in LA, there's so much, right? There's like Milk Bar just opened.
What is that?
Which was like
An
New
ice cream?
York. No, well, they have soft serve ice cream, but it's like
Milk Bar.
It's like a Christina Tosi.
I think I saw a Netflix thing.
For sure.
Okay.
From Momofuku Milk Bar way back in the day in New York used to be a thing, and she has like
makes
crack
cereal?
pie. She has cereal milk ice cream.
Okay.
Soft
What's
serve
crack
ice
pie?
cream. Crack pie is like it's like butter pie. It's like really delicious.
Chocolate.
It's like butter. I don't know. It's like a chess pie kind of. Like it's like gooey, sweet. let me just give you words that describe all desserts.
Is it vanilla? Is it chocolate?
It's
Is
like
it
butter.
butterscotch?
It's like buttery filling.
Okay.
It's like buttery gooey filling. My mouth is watering.
Okay. Is it there's something called a gooey pie.
It's like that. It's like a
cheesecake. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not cheesy though. It's more buttery than cheesy.
All right.
Crack pie. She's got.
I'll look it up.
If you go in there, it's like cookies. She's got cornflake marshmallow chocolate chip cookies. She's got corn cookies, and my favorite is you can get a single slice of her birthday cake.
Oh.
Which is like vanilla confetti cake with crazy icing, and then like vanilla cake dough inside the icing.
Weird.
It's like fantastical over the top desserts.
Okay. Yeah, that is weird about Los Angeles is that it does have a lot of donut shops and dessert places for a place where everyone's very concerned with staying thin.
I know.
I don't know if there's a lot of throwing up going on, but what other desserts do you like?
So what else do I love? I like Bottega Louie. If you've been downtown, there's this restaurant called Bottega Louie.
How do you spell Bottega? Like bodega?
Like Bottega, but with T's.
With T's instead of D's. Okay.
Yes.
And is it new?
No, it's not new. It's been here since I've been in California.
Okay, sure. So at least 5 years?
5 years now, maybe.
Okay.
So they have like obviously they have all kinds of like macaron, like fancy.
the macaron.
Yeah.
Sure.
But then they also have a bakery case, so they have beautiful pastries.
Eclairs?
I'm like envisioning. They have fancy eclairs and lemon meringue tarts, and they're beautiful.
A cannoli?
I don't know if they have cannolis. I don't know about that.
There's a coffee shop restaurant-y thing over in Toluca Lake called Sweet Salt. Or Salt Sweet or something like that.
Oh, man.
And they used to have this thing. I don't even remember what the hell it was, but it was amazing. They said it was Canadian. It was a Canadian cake. And I was like, do you have the Canadian cake? And they're like, oh, we stopped making that. And I was like, I don't even know what it was called. It was
just Canadian cake?
It was a Canadian cake. And I was like, I don't remember the Canadians being that super... I mean, they have poutine, which they think they invented gravy and cheese on French fries. And you're like, you can have it.
Right.
It could be yours. and then other than that, it just feels like...
Maybe it's maple syrup.
There wasn't any maple syrup on it. Well, I do like maple syrup, though.
I do, too.
But it's weird when you go out and you're like, is it real maple syrup? You don't want to ask because it feels insulting. Yeah. And the waitress or waiter doesn't always know. They're like, and if they don't know, it isn't. It means it's just corn syrup.
It's just normal.
Yeah.
Like Aunt Jemima.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a Canadian cake, I'll have to look that up. Ooh, the last time I went to Sweet Salt, I got, because I eat a lot of desserts as well, I got a rhubarb, it was when rhubarb was in season. I got a, like a rhubarb pound cake.
Okay.
That was just out of the oven.
Wow.
It was so
a pound cake
good.
with rhubarb baked into it.
Like on top. So it was like, I want to say, and I don't know for sure, but based on the taste, I think there was some cornmeal base, and then rhubarb on top. But it was like sweet and buttery and tangy because of the rhubarb.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I like a strawberry rhubarb pie, is because the rhubarb will make it a little bit more tangy, more tart. What do you think about puddings? Do you like a pudding? Custard? That's not your downfall from the sound of it?
No, it's, if it's part of something, if it's integrated into the dessert in some way.
Sure.
I don't mind a pudding. But a pudding as just...
When you go out?
Yeah, just a pudding by itself, I feel left wanting.
Okay. So is it the grain that you're looking for?
Yeah,
you need
I need
some sort of
to get
flour?
my teeth, sink my teeth into a little
Fair
bit.
Enough.
Fair.
What about ice cream?
I love ice cream. Now that I'm a little bit older, dairy for me
Oh, it's hard.
is
It's not treating you right?
it's not so good.
Oh, interesting.
I can't do the dairy as much.
I think there's like non-dairy ice cream,
Yeah,
right?
I like a non-dairy ice cream, but it's not the same.
It isn't the same. There's something else. It's a different food entirely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't ever. When you go to a Trader Joe's and they have that whole row of candy and stuff, usually above like the shumai.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, there's dumplings. And if you look up, there's like dark chocolate
Peanut butter cups.
peanut butter cups.
Oh, man.
What is with those?
Oh, they're so good.
They're really good.
They're so good.
Yeah. Have you ever made a dark chocolate peanut butter cup? I don't even know how to make that.
I mean, you are never going to make the chocolate. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You can make a little parts of that, and you can mix up the peanut butter
and
with
chocolate
sugar
and some marshmallow and stick it in the microwave.
You got a peanut butter smiley.
Exactly. That's what you're looking for, a little peanut butter smiley. And that's what I'm going to ask for the next time I do Sugar Rush. Can you make some peanut butter smileys?
You'll be like, these are disgusting.
They sound amazing.
I think
honestly.
they taste good like the first 2 minutes out of the microwave.
Oh, that's
I don't
it?
think they age well. I think they get very hard.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Wow. My ad. I'm about to do an ad. Rangers, this is an ad for the New Yorker. You don't need an ad for the New Yorker, but you need to know that you get 12 weeks of the New Yorker for $6, plus the exclusive tote. So you go to newyorker.com/dork, and you save 50% off. Usually the first 12 weeks is $12, but Dork Forest listeners save 50% off when they enter the code DORK. So go to newyorker.com/dork. You know the New Yorker. The New Yorker is some of the best writing in America today. Beyond publishing the best writers in the world, they literally have been holding people in power accountable through rigorous reporting and compelling storytelling, both online and print. You get both of them, by the way, for the $6. And it's a full range, including politics and news and international affairs and climate change and the environment, pop culture, the arts, fiction, food, humor, cartoons. One of my favorites, of course, Helen Rosner, a James Beard Award-winning food writer, joined the New Yorker as a roving food correspondent last year in 2018. And she is contributing essays and reported stories on all things foodie. So that's my current favorite. Of course, there's Ronan Farrow. There's a staff writer and professor of journalism at Columbia who writes about race, politics, history, and culture. Anyway, it's the freaking New Yorker. You get a free tote. Get 12 weeks of the New Yorker for $6. So go to newyorker.com/dork and you save 50% off when you enter dork for $6. Let's get back into the show. Now, you were talking about other things that you like to dork out about.
Yeah.
So there's dance and there's science.
Dance and science. Yeah. So I recently moved to Los Angeles.
Right.
And I moved from San Diego where I was getting my master's degree in dance theater.
Okay.
And UCSD has a lot of science that happens there. And I think some of my favorite work that I would do is to do dance with scientists or help scientists with their projects through dance.
Interesting. How was that a thing? How did that start?
Yeah. Well, actually, the very first person I was introduced to was a person that was working on self-driving cars.
Okay.
He was the tallest person I've ever met in my entire life and very German. And they wrote me an email and they were like, one of these engineers is working on a self-driving car and they need a choreographer to help them figure out movement.
Oh,
and
interesting.
do some experiments based on movement.
Oh, wow.
And so I met with this fellow, very nice man. And of course, in my head, I just thought we would be like dressing up, wearing boxes that look like we're driving cars and like running around in a dance studio. And, and they said you would be the perfect partner for me because what I'm actually looking for, and I'm sure this isn't what he meant, but was to see how to help make self-driving cars assholes.
Assholes?
Yeah, because when you're driving, human drivers and pedestrians have a certain degree of aggressiveness,
right,
which is how we know who might go next at a four-way stop if we're not sure.
Right.
Or how we might know if someone intends to cross the street or if they're just standing there with their friends talking.
Right.
But part of the issue with self-driving cars, he was explaining to me, was that cars can't be assholes in the same way that people are.
Yeah.
So they have to figure out how people convey intention through movement.
Okay.
So part of that is
so that they can convey it to the other self-driving car?
So that when self-driving cars are on the road with human-driven cars, then humans don't take advantage of the fact that self-driving cars were made to be safe. Because you could just bully.
That's hilarious.
The self-driving cars.
Right, exactly.
So they looked down the line of choreographers and said, who could help you?
Right, how do we turn the self-driving cars into self-bullying cars?
And they said Erin.
There you go. Let's find Erin and see if Erin Tracy could tell us how to turn a car into a jackass.
But it's a good question, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you... Right, because hierarchically, safety is so important.
Right, that's what they're trying to do.
But then at a certain point, it can be unsafe, right? Super safety can be unsafe
because if nobody knows who's supposed to go next, or any sort of, you need some sort of indicator,
right? Or if you know, well, this is how I can get my own self-driving car to slow down or to stop for someone.
Right.
Then I can use that on other cars in the wild, right?
Yeah,
if I'm in a rush to get somewhere.
Right.
I could take advantage of that. So that was kind of how the science thing started. I don't think I was as helpful to them as I was going to say.
Well, I think that's a very almost impossible thing to try to articulate and create in an artificial situation. It's an interesting idea that they would want such a thing, and it does sound like something that they would have to address.
Yeah.
But to artificially create that situation sounds almost impossible.
Because you would have to create technology that could read like very micro indicators of intention, right?
Right.
Both in, like, part of driving is you see someone else's eyes, or they give you a wave, or
if you make eye contact with them, and some people don't want to.
Oh yeah.
And then you're like, oh, he's not letting me in because he won't look at me. And but if you can get him to look at you, he'll be exasperated but let you in.
And you give him the wave.
And you're like, thanks. And so yeah, we would have to create sentient AIs, which then of course means the singularity.
Right.
And then of course it's all over. Right. Our lives are done, and we are then the servants of the machine.
Yep.
So, what do you think about self-driving cars? Have you heard of such a thing? I don't like them. Andy wants them. I don't want them.
Man, there's
I like the idea of having a driver. Don't get me wrong.
I was about to say, the lazy part of me is like, bring it. Like, I had to drive to San Diego for a project recently. I was like, if somebody else could be driving this thing, it would be great. But but I think based on just those limited conversations I had, the enormity of what that means, I don't think was ever clear to me, right? It was just a concept until I was getting into the nitty gritty and what cars would have to know and how we would have to change how we as human beings interact with technology in order to share the road with them. So I would say right now, I'm a no.
Too soon.
I'm a no for right now.
Fair enough. And now, what did you do did you get your master's?
I got my master's.
All right. In dance choreography.
Yeah.
So you can now direct marching bands? What are we looking at?
You can call me Dance Master Erin.
Dance Master Erin Tracy, you guys. What do you do with such a thing? I mean, I suppose if you were in theater and you could choreograph things.
Yeah. So it turns out you do stand-up comedy.
Well, yeah, that's what you end up doing. You're like, I'm going to do stand-up.
So since then, I've worked on a variety of things. I work with theater shows. If they have like a movement sequence, or I tend to work not with musicals, more with written, like
just regular
theater shows.
Okay.
That was really the area that I was more specific to, was both to work with shows that use language.
Okay.
So speaking and talking,
instead of song.
Speaking and dancing, or I also work a bit, and I think this is why I ended up partnering with science, is I also am interested in dance for non-dancers, right? And how there are different ways to get non-dancers moving. And the applications for that.
How do you get non-dancers to dance?
Oh, there are a lot of answers to that question.
Yeah.
So I am of the very strong mindset that we should all be dancing to a certain extent as a practice, whether or not we're dancers.
Oh yeah.
And theoretically, I would say that there are two. As part of my value system, there are two reasons for that. And the first is that movement in general and the ability to move in all directions, right? Instead of just walking forward.
Yeah.
Like we're used to being very frontal creatures.
Yeah.
But the possibility of moving through space in any direction, this cognitively is good for us. It's been studied. It's good for you.
It gives so flexibility. It affects your mindset as well,
and spatially, right? Like if you have to navigate moving through space, in all different kinds of ways at all different levels, you're building some more neural pathways.
Okay,
right?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And then the kind of the other side of it, and the side of it I've been thinking about a lot, and that is very problematic, is touch. Like I think, so something we do a lot in contemporary dance is touch and partnering, and also exercises where we just use non-sexual, non-sensual physical touch, right, to gain information about where our bodies are in space, texture, all different kinds of things, right? But we just, it's such a problematic thing because it's something we don't get unless you get like regular massages, or you take a yoga class where you have a very hands-on teacher or something like that.
Like if you get body work where people touch you in a non-sexual way.
Right. If you get Reiki on a regular basis.
Right. Which is, it just, that what you're saying is that that's good for people.
Yeah. I think, we've done all these studies about how that impacts babies and young children, right? How important it is to be touched.
Yeah. Physical contact is super important, I think.
Super important.
Because if you don't get touched and you don't have someone to hug or hold you or even just, any sort of physical contact, you can feel real isolated, and it can be emotionally really hard to interact on every other level. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So, but I mean, as a person that just is barely making the cutoff to be a millennial, like there are so many of us living alone, maybe with roommates, working from home,
right?
From home,
a lot
job,
of home working,
and so I think that's a question and also a problem, right? Like even now when you go out and you take a class in the world, if you take a dance class or something like that, there are a lot of politics because so many people have abused the privilege of being able to touch other people.
Right.
But that's something that I am curious about and feel very strongly about. How do we reintroduce scenarios where human beings can touch one another and people can receive touch? And in motion too. I think that's the beauty of dance is like it's not like you're laying on a table and someone's doing it to you, right?
Right.
You're gaining information about your body, but you're also gaining it about your body in motion, moving through space, right?
Like if you take ballroom dance or you take swing dancing or something like that.
Right. Or if you're in contemporary dance class and there's someone, picking you up or just helping you feel the connection between your head and your tailbone,
Do you know Solange Castro?
I have met her. Yes, I have. She's a big salsa lady, right?
Right. Yeah. She has done a salsa episode. It was probably 2 years ago now, but it was a fascinating episode because how often she goes salsa dancing and how she has never dated one of her partners. She's like, I don't. These are not men I have anything in common with except for the fact that I love to dance with them. Yeah. And they love to dance with me. But it isn't sexual. It's just a really fun athletic event, essentially.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe that's part of it too, is that it isn't just dance. It's also like people who play basketball. Like Ian Bagg is a comic who likes to play hockey. Yeah. And he's got to be 45 years old, but he's, on a hockey team with a bunch of other 45-year-old guys, and he can sort of screw around and, and have that physical interaction with other people without it being a sexual thing, where it's just like, because I think we do, I mean, if we're all working from home and we're in front of our computers and we don't necessarily, and we're shit talking each other over with the video games and stuff like that, but that's our entire interaction with humanity, there is trouble there. Yeah. I mean, it's trouble brewing, and it's trouble, obviously it manifests itself in people not knowing how to actually do face-to-face and just sort of being in the world.
Yeah, there's that, like, visceral humanity comes through touch. Like there's something, you aren't just a picture on a screen.
Right. You're not an avatar.
Right.
Yeah.
You have veins and bones and skin.
Right. And there's heat.
Yeah.
And you're just a person.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. Do you dance regularly?
I dance regularly. I don't do it as much as I would like.
Yeah.
I recently, the last major project that I worked on was I was working with a neuroscientist, and we were studying the impact that dance has on Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
And what it would be like for people that have Parkinson's disease to have a regular practice of dancing and learning choreography. So cognitively speaking,
right,
like learning a combination that they have to repeat over time.
Okay.
And so I was dancing in a very specific way for that project, right? Because it was not about, the limits of my ability, but instead trying to translate the experience of being in a dance setting through a setting that was much more lab-like.
Right.
For non-dancers.
Like a sort of physical therapy kind of situation. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So you were trying to choreograph something that someone with Parkinson's could do if they if that was part of their PT kind of situation.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep. So I dance on my own. I take class here in Los Angeles a lot. I'll go to all different kinds of classes.
Oh, different dance classes? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fun. Like what?
So gosh, there are so many.
I bet.
There's so many choices. Oh, and I'm going to get in trouble. But so I'll take Millennium Dance Complex is like a very famous hip hop studio here. Sometimes I'll take class there. I'll take. There's a burlesque class I used to be able to walk to from my house.
Oh, wow.
That you can just take, and it's technique, right? You're learning turns, and you're like doing the sexy dance, and you're like here, like old school, twirl my
like
feather
flappers.
boa. And
the hip hop thing is more like skipping and I'm 100. You doing that thing with your feet, right, where you skip it up and down, and
I
you
just
kind of
wish
look.
they could see the hand you did with skipping.
There's a skipping thing. As you can tell, Jackie Cash, a lot of dance. I only dance when no one is watching, so it's very rare.
Oh man.
So, but yeah, I think that it's a good idea because it would be so hip hop and burlesque.
Yeah, there's a great studio that does like Cunningham technique that it's Peter Performance Space does Buto, and they bring in all different kinds of
What is Buto?
That's a Japanese form.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
And the so okay, so the other what's the Cunningham technique?
Merce Cunningham. So it's like kind of from the school of modern dance. There were all these different techniques that came about that like have all these rules and a sequence of movements that you do. And Merce Cunningham was a choreographer and very famous studio runner in New York forever, right? Merce Cunningham studio closed a handful of years ago, and it was like the end of an era.
Okay.
He like very innovative, like looking at movement. Part of that whole postmodern idea of like, he worked a lot with John Cage, that composer that was like 3 minutes of silence is a song, right? Like it's like, that was not what he sounds like. I should. There are a lot of very hardcore Cage fans out there. Sorry, guys. But like,
no, and this is the safest space in the world. It's fine because you can like it and still be
love it.
It is right. I mean, I can tell that you love it. I can tell that you love it, but you're also like, this feels weird to talk about. But you can't. I mean, you should know in your heart, I don't know any of this. It's just this is even worse than music. I don't know anything about dance, and I know nothing about music. So the thing is about modern dance. Whenever I see modern dance, it's sort of like modern art. I know that there's a reason that they're doing it, that something has occurred to make it a process that everyone recognizes, and things are built on top of other things that came before it. But I don't know what that is, right? So what is modern dance, and what did it like? Because the last thing I remember is ballroom dance, okay? And let us say, there's line dancing.
Yeah.
There's but modern dance, it feels like to some extent modern art, where if you look at a Jackson Pollock painting, you're just like, well, that is a mess. But it isn't a mess because he trained, and then something came from, like it was built on the shoulders of 30 things that came before it. Right. And then Jackson Pollock made his thing. There's that giant black dot that's on the corner of that canvas that's at the Guggenheim, and you're like, that's a black dot on the canvas. But there's more to it, right?
Yeah.
And nobody talks like that. But where does modern dance?
Well, and I think this is what you're articulating right now as the crisis that dance is having right now.
Okay.
Which is, it's I would dare say, the forms of it, and we're kind of, that are being innovated right now are very highly specialized, right? They're for the people that understand the legacy that went before.
Okay.
Like I've made a lot of shows.
Narrow.
Yeah, I mean, I've made a lot of shows where people walk out and they're like, I don't know what it was, but it was fine, and so it's, I think that is a good question, is like, so modern dance happened a while ago, right? Modern dance, that's all the like we're no longer just doing ballet. Okay. Right? We can have a different relationship to our bodies than like French court dance.
Yes.
From hundreds of years ago.
Right.
We're like questioning that, right? So then that was a questioning of that. And then from that, then came all this postmodern dance, right? Pomo dance.
Pomo dancing?
Postmodern
Is that what it's called?
Just by those of us that love it. No. So then there's postmodern dance, which is, again, so here is a very modern dance has a form.
Okay.
Right? There is like the mommy and the daddy, and they have a form in schools, and, Martha Graham.
And it happened.
And it happened. So then after that, there were these people that started to question, and there was Judson Church in New York, where people were like questioning what is movement, is just like what is music. It's like a stillness dance.
Yeah.
Could you how do we have relationship with other bodies? So there have been a series of people that innovated around that time, right? Like we're in New York City, and it's like the hippies and the 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, and then
there's all these groovers who are questioning
and being
the
radical
structure of modern dance and saying, there's more to it than that. What could this be?
Yeah.
And so then they're creating sort of, they're rebels from it.
Right.
But they from that were their structures that came from that, the postmodern dance.
Yeah. So then I would say that was what we call postmodern dance, is like that Judson Church era when people are really, contact improv, those kinds of things are emerging that maybe.
Are they touching each other?
They're touching each other.
What's the choreography of this different stuff?
Yeah, so I would say there's a wide range, right?
Of course.
But if we're talking touch, I think we're talking about Steve Paxton, and we're talking about contact improvisation, which is where you are using. So again, it takes it is a form, but it's about two bodies that are taking away the hierarchy of the man always lifts the woman.
Okay.
And there's always structure, right? That there's a possibility that through touch you could be lifting people in a huge group of people, right? You could be rolling and falling and catching and using your body in a way that's soft enough that you wouldn't get hurt, even if you were maybe doing things that unplanned, right?
Okay.
It's all improvisation.
Okay. So improvisational dance.
Mm-hmm. But it's contact improvisation, so you're
working
touching
with
other bodies.
Right. I once... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I once saw a performance art that was horrible. And everyone was working very hard to create something very interesting, and it was not. It was supposed to be about cloning, and it was a science fiction. It was all silent, and there was lifting and people wandering around, and I have to sneeze, but so that may happen at some point.
Where did you see it?
Down by UCLA or USC, probably 14 years ago.
Okay.
And it was one of the first dates I went on. Thank you. With Andy Ashcraft. And we went with some friends of his who bought the tickets. And so the four of us go, and it was theater in the round.
Okay.
And there were many people in lab coats, and two people were born, and they were completely nude and hairless. Hairless, nude, man, woman, noodly, no hairs. No hairs on their face, no hairs on their parts, all hairlessness.
Great.
And there was contact where he would carry her around, and at one point he held her over a basin, and some balls fell out of her, and they clanged in this basin. And at which point, an older couple in front of us got up and left, and we thought, good for them. Wish we had the guts, because it was such an interactive kind of performance art piece. There were probably 16 people in the cast.
Right.
Probably 100 people in the audience, and it was in the round. And the couple who left had to walk through the cast to get out.
Oh, no.
But they were like, "Oh no, we're leaving." And I think at a certain point, maybe it's 60, where you're like, "No, I get it. Gotta head out."
Yeah.
And so good for them.
Yeah.
But it felt like, I mean, there was physicalness to it that was interesting.
Yeah.
And there were people, like the lab coat people were on pulleys and on structures, like sort of scaffolding.
Yeah.
And they were hanging off of things, and there was this sort of choreography going on. And then the two sort of man, woman, noodly people, they were lifting each other around and doing things. And that was interesting. But it did not have a narrative.
Yeah.
That sometimes I need when I see theater.
Well, and again, I think that's part of dance is, I dare say, and this is something because I have a theater background, I love language, I like to talk a lot, that dance, I would say right now, many of the popular ideas is that it's aligning itself with the idea of non-narrative.
Oh, interesting.
That dance has a visceral experience to offer that is not about offering an audience a narrative like a ballet
story.
might, right? Like you're not going, if you go to the ballet, you might see Giselle, right? You might see Swan Lake. You know there's a narrative attached. You know why they're doing this thing. Yeah. Whereas I think a lot of, I think what you're describing and what a lot of dance makers right now think a lot about is how do you make a dance that doesn't have to follow a narrative trajectory and can give people experience of movement without having to attach it to story?
I like to think of that as ice skating. I don't know if you've seen a lot of ice skating where they dance around to some music and stuff. There's no narrative there. They're just showing off how good they are.
How virtuosic they are.
They're pretty nice with the jumping and the skating. Is that dance?
Oh, man. So...
Am I making this complicated?
This is when they all egg my apartment in Glendale. No, so...
Good for you for living in Glendale.
So I would say dance makers, the people that make the Jackson Pollock and are interested in that might look at ice
figure skating.
as like a, I don't know, like a poster.
Okay. So it's sort of like a simplified two-dimensional version of what the art that they're trying to create.
But it's a different form. I mean, ice skating there's some dance technique in ice skating, but it isn't dance technique.
Right, because it's skating technique.
So it's a different thing. So
it's a sport.
It would be like a different poster than a Pollock, right? Like it would be like a basketball poster instead of
because when you think about movement, you're just like, because there's those people who dance with ribbons,
rhythmic gymnasts,
the rhythmic, and then there's regular gymnasts,
right?
And then there's the floor routines of those people, and that is not dance. That is different.
That's a different thing. I mean, there's again elements of dance.
There are elements of dance, and there's element of athleticism in dance,
right?
And where they meet, and it's artistic dance, that is its own thing.
Yeah, gosh, and then it's so broad, right?
Right.
It's what we're talking about is that very specific postmodern dance movement where people are beyond that sounds very dance of me. They're beyond virtuosity, right?
Okay.
It's not about necessarily, and some are still interested in that. Some are interested in experimenting with that. But I would say that there's also the question of like, and part of what came in during that postmodern era was like pedestrian movement as dance, walking, running.
Okay.
Right.
Well, now, see, and this is where it feels like a little bit of the Hunger Games in the way that you're like, because when I see, and I do not, as Rangers of the Dork Forest know, there's not a lot of pop culture being consumed by one Jackie Cation. So I don't watch a lot of like the Super Bowl halftime productions.
You didn't miss anything.
Beyonce, like Beyonce, the Formation thing, right?
Yeah.
But when I do see it, I'm like, wow, that is choreography.
Yeah.
That's clearly been choreographed, which isn't a word, but there's been some planning, is what I'm saying. Everybody's jumping at the same time. There's a lot of movement, and that is dance. And that is dance that is not necessarily telling a story. It is, but it's just, it's sort of athleticism and choreography and dance, but it isn't necessarily, hey, we're all going to show up at the MoMA and see this, right? So there's so many different levels to this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the classic choreography of here's a song, we break the music up into certain counts, we make a move for each count, is still arguably somewhat narrative, right? We're telling the story of that song, that Beyonce song, right? Like our punch, 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 head throw is we don't need a man anymore, right?
Right.
Like whatever
twerking,
we're doing with our rib cage, is about being an empowered woman, right?
Right.
But there's still,
you can look at it, you can't touch it. Don't stick your penis in it until I say yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
I think that is exactly what the lyrics are to that song too. But I think that they're now, so for example, something that I did a lot as a master of dance is work with people that were interested in improvisational scores. So we had a plan for what would happen in a time frame, but we didn't know every single count.
Okay.
So it was we could have a score, right, for this over durationally, this is what we will achieve.
Okay.
Physically, but it isn't 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So, I see. So it wasn't choreographed in the way of a chorus line.
Right. It was open. It's an open score.
It's an open score. So you know that that it's a 4/4 beat.
Not
but
even.
Do whatever.
Could be no music.
Could be no music.
Could be no music. Could be we're going to start in a group on the ground.
Yeah.
So we have over 30 minutes. We're going to start in a group on the ground. From the group on the ground, we're going to each establish our own space in the room.
Okay.
And deal with a head-tail connection or spiral or something physical.
Okay.
For example.
Head-tail, that sounds like with the top of your head?
Your head and your tailbone.
And your tailbone. Okay. So you're working through the spine from those spaces.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
Head-tail connection. That's also, there's,
I get it.
Yeah. So, and then from there, we'll move into everyone is walking forward at a quick pace.
Okay.
And then, right, so you know where the choreography is, right? One could say the choreography is a plan.
Yep.
And there's a plan to that. But it's not a song, right? It's not driven by music.
Okay.
It's driven by dance.
Oh, it's driven by dance itself. Dance being its own thing.
Dance being its own thing.
Without,
not beholden to music.
Not beholden to music. Oh, musicians at this point are going, what? What just happened? How'd you cut me out of the
There could be music, and that could be
equation.
part of the score. And
Right.
in fact, I worked with musicians and they danced with us and made music and as part of the score. But it wasn't about. It doesn't have to start with the structure of music.
It can start in silence. Is the music inside of you? I'm so sorry to laugh. Because of course it is. It has to be, right?
The music is inside all of us.
It has to be inside all of us. And if this is your song, how could you not sing it? Is Maria's what she calls her fart bit. She used to close on this whole thing about she was working with different sounds and it was farts, fart noises, and I call it her Philip Glass bit.
Yeah.
And she calls it her fart bit. And but it was
That's awesome.
and it is a lot. But
No, I would. So when I taught contemporary dance
Yeah.
as part of my master's program, I would assign that. I would say they would work in groups and they would make a dance, and I would say part of your dance has to be either in silence or to something that isn't canned preset music.
okay. So it could be typewriters or
Could be
it could be
typewriters.
noise.
Could be noise.
A non-musical situation.
Yeah.
Got it. Or non-traditional musical.
Non-traditional music. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
had one group that there was a brilliant singer. She was an opera singer getting her doctorate degree. And she improvised singing, but not words and not any words we ever knew before. And it was
Right.
magic. And all the students that had only ever heard iPods their whole life looked up at the speakers in the dance studio where is that coming from?
And
it's
it was
coming
just
from a
from
human
her.
body, right?
And with no amplification.
With no amplification.
Because her voice is that big.
Right.
Yeah.
It just space, right?
Just filled the...
But those are the kinds of opportunities I think but because it's gotten to that place, I think people that are used to watching dance and choreographed numbers with an 8 count.
Right.
Then when you watch something like Oklahoma, then when you watch something like that, you're like, whoa.
Right.
This is weird.
This
is a woman with things falling out of her over a bathtub.
Right.
And I don't understand the rules of this.
Right. It felt like, and this thing felt like it didn't make, the reason the performance art wasn't very good was because it couldn't decide. It was both experimental and trying to pay homage to something traditional.
Right.
And failing on both fronts, quite honestly. Yeah. But it didn't mean it wasn't worth the effort. And it felt $39 like I could have lit it on fire, but I was glad to have paid somebody's rent in the end. Because it was what it was. So it's fine. But it did resonate. It did stay with me. So does that arguably that means it's something.
You carried it with you in your cells.
Yep.
To this day.
To this very day. And Andy and I will still, at the end of it,
about it.
we will still laugh about it. He just told me that he did a thing at a it was not dance related, but it was music related, where during college, he was in a band that performed at the Rainbow Room one time or two. I think he only did it a couple of times. There was a band of artists and they were musical, obviously.
Yeah.
And he was a fine artist. He went to school for fine art, and he painted during their set.
Lovely, yeah.
And he, for 45 minutes, unremarked by the band, he just painted, and I was like, would you ever want to do that during my set? And where he just, he was like, you could never mention me. And I was like, well, that seems weird. Did they never mention you? He said, no, they mentioned me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you should just say, well, this is my artist. And then I'm going to do my set. And then I would do my jokes. And then he would paint whatever he painted.
So then I have a question about that. So would you, as a stand-up comedian, if you introduced something like that, like art with, I dare say, a capital A,
yes,
into the space while you were performing comedy,
right?
How would you deal with that?
I don't even know what that would be.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like my kind of stand-up comedy. It would be like more something that Maria would do.
Yeah.
Except for that I could do it. I mean, it's not like it could not be done.
Yeah, I wonder about that because of dance. Like, there's part of me that would love to, like, figure out how dance and stand-up comedy go together without having to be, like, totally slapstick and, like, knock over the stool, right? Like, I would like to figure that out, but it feels like that invites, like, that level of being virtuosic invites something that isn't funny, right? Or, like, a listening or an attending to the performer.
Right. Right. It would definitely, what it would be, offhand, it sounds that it would be terrifying.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like. It sounds like you're like, oh, I've got to fill the silences. With stand-up comedy, I have always felt this thing. Comics who can be quiet. I've always admired them, like Tig Notaro or Stuart Lee. And they will celebrate that silence and they will just sit in it. Yeah. And you're like, how are you doing that? And to do something like what you would want to do, where you would take that movement, that dance part of it, and make it part of your stand-up, I bet you it would open up, it would blow open parts of your mind, and you would write things that that no one's written, And it would make your stand-up very unique to you. And it would take a second.
Yeah.
Like it would.
It would suck for a while.
It would suck for a while, but it really does whenever you try anything new in stand-up comedy.
That's true.
I mean, if you think about it, like there are bits, like we could all write, yo mama jokes forever, right? We could all make fun of our, do the things that we do and talk about being fat or talk about going to the bathroom and fucking around. And we talk about the same 9 things that we do, and we do anyway,
right.
But we make them very personal. So you could take, if you wanted to work movement and dance into your act, it would be very difficult.
I just have to figure out how to do Yo Mama in interpretive dance.
Right. Well, because you like you have a bit about your parents, right?
Yeah.
You have a bit about your mother. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, how does that fit into dance? How could I talk about my mother? There was a woman in Minneapolis, actually, who it was character work, but it was hilarious. And she did this thing where she would tell a story. And every character in that story had a different physical tick.
Oh, I love that.
And so she would talk about a woman in the story had freckles. And so every time she talked about that woman in that woman's voice, she would just make dots on her face with her fingers.
She had a physical vocabulary attached to each one. I love that. That's brilliant.
And there was a dude who had, he had a tick or he had a physical attribute, and that could be the movement that you could integrate into your act if you wanted to integrate movement into your act.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of wild. Yes. It'd be dangerous, but you have a space, right? The sugar rush. Mm-hmm. I'm talking, by the way, Erin Tracy. But you have this space that you go up every week.
Every month.
So just right. So it is just a month, once a month, but it's a safe space.
Yeah.
Because those are people who like you.
Yeah.
And they come every month, and you could experiment with that, and be like, "Here we go, you guys."
I'm gonna go into Erin's Strange World of Dance Comedy.
Yes, Erin's Strange World of Dance Comedy could be fascinating.
I badly want to go there. And
the thing is there's no rule with stand up.
No.
Because stand-up can be anything. If you've ever watched Zach Galifianakis, that guy's a weirdo, and it was hit and miss.
Very choreographic, though.
Right?
To lay on the ground. That's choreography.
Right. Yep. So
brilliant choreography.
So think about that. We are very much at an hour. Okay. And this is, I wish we had started earlier, but I'll have you back because this was fascinating.
Yeah.
Erin Tracy, you can follow her on Twitter at Erin Tracy Comedy, ErinTracy Comedy, and on Instagram at Erin N. Tracy, 2 N's, ERINNTRACY. Thank you very much for doing the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?